I bet those glasses make you see better.
As far as I understand, your position repeatedly in the response to people's criticism of you was that they don't understand your position and that they're misconstruing your argument. So maybe it would be better if you first download your perspective on this, and then we can talk about it. Because, yeah, I mean, you said repeated to me in the conversation that I don't understand your position. You're going to explain it to me, and then I'm going to agree with you. So why don't we just get that out of the way, and we'll figure it out right away if I agree with you or not.
All right, sounds good. So the argument that we were having was over. Can we agree to maybe a couple things? The argument we're having was over a tweet, where I tweeted out about voting that I quote tweeted, and then you had sent out a tweet saying, "Yeah, Andrew Wilson's position is, well, migrants can go ahead and rape them." I'm not trying to straw man your position, but just want to make sure we're on the same page. That's what we're arguing about, so I can give you the context for it.
Yeah, I suppose that's fine. Obviously, if you want to establish the context of the tweets.
So I quote. Yeah, so that tweet was a quote tweet, right? And just nobody read the quote, and I don't know why. The quote tweet, I was quoting a woman that I had debated before, who essentially blames all of the kind of situation of bad behavior of women on men. That's her. That was basically her position. Again, I can't dive into an elongated version, but that was her basic position. Yeah. Well, in this tweet that I quoted, the thing that I was responding to, which I posted, is the part where she says, "It seems like the boots on the ground revolution against migrant crime will be led by the ladies who have learned the hard way no one's coming to save them, not their fathers or brothers, not the men of their community, not the state. They are already in the thick of the battle while the men are still living in fear of the state. When men aren't willing to risk the wrath of the state to protect their daughters, then their daughters must carry that burden themselves because the only other option is death by migrant gang rape." So it's my view that she's trying to shift the burden of responsibility for this happening purely to men, which I knew that this was coming. I put a tweet out earlier, which showed a graphic that they had put out that basically said men aren't going to do anything, so I guess we'll have to do it ourselves. And that's what I was responding to. And this was completely misrepresented as me saying that I'm defending migrants and want girls to get raped, which is fucking insane. I have no idea why anybody would ever take that position unless they were trying to misrepresent what I was saying. So, yeah, that's my position.
So I didn't get that at all from Philosophicat's post. I think that I don't know. I don't obviously follow you that closely because, frankly, I don't really give a shit what OnlyFans sluts and feminists have to say about anything. And nor do I really care to listen to discourse between, them and the people who want to argue with them. Although, of course, I've seen some of your clips and yeah, they can be funny and haha, dunk on the stupid OnlyFans cunt. But in this case, Philosophicat is not a feminist. She's pretty traditional. And from what I've seen from her, she's never really been hostile towards men. But I think this
Are you aware that I did a 3-hour debate with her on it?
On this specific topic?
Well, it was on the topic of men, her claim that men are essentially responsible for the kind of West falling, and it's their fault that women are acting out. That was her position, yes.
I mean, I fundamentally agree with that perspective, and I think I'm not a feminist, obviously, but it's precisely because I'm not a feminist that I agree with her argument. I think ultimately we're in this position because men have shirked their responsibility. And if you believe in hierarchy and the hierarchy of men over women, if men begin shirking their responsibility, then it's going to have a negative effect down the chain. And the only way to reestablish that harmonious hierarchy is for men to reassert themselves, take the position and leadership back, and then establish dominance again. And they're not going to do that by asking for it from women or demanding that they submit. It's going to be done through action. So
like what? Like what action?
Well, men have to begin organizing themselves politically. So this is
to do what? Yeah, but to do what?
What do you mean to do? Organize themselves politically so that they can reassert control and take their countries back. Now, I think the fundamental.
So wait. So are women going to let you organize and take the countries
I don't
back, or are
care.
you
I
gonna?
don't care if they're
You're
going
right.
to.
You're gonna use. So you're gonna use force, right?
Yeah, of course we are.
Of course you are. So then you would as agree with the essential doctrine of force doctrine, then, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So then the very idea here is that migrants are in the UK and they're using force to take the country, right?
Correct.
That's the idea. So then are they taking their rightful place as the head of the hierarchy then?
I mean, if you believe that might is right, I suppose so. But, you know, the only people that can oppose them is British men in this situation. 1 second.
Hmm.
No, I think like I want to establish part of this because I think it's fundamental to this debate, which is you're not a nationalist, are you? I mean, you go by Christian nationalist, but to me, that's just kind of a nonsense term. You're a Christian, right?
What does that have to do? That has nothing to do with this
It has
position.
everything to do with this discussion.
No, it's just a red herring. So
No,
do you
it's
want to
not a red herring.
argue? Do you want to argue about the thing that we're arguing about, which
I'm
is this
going to
tweet?
address it, but in order to put this in context, to put my perspective in context, I need to address the nationalism versus anti-feminism discussion.
Okay, well then let's start with what a nationalist is then, from your view.
Well, a nationalist is somebody who puts their own people, their own nation as the foremost important lens by which they view all problems. So
Would
from
this
my
would this include a supersession over God?
I'm not I believe in folk over faith. I don't care what religion you know my countrymen choose to adhere to. It's not my place
Yeah, but
to.
if they put the hierarchy, I guess, at God, country, are they still nationalists? Is what I'm asking.
I mean, most Christians would do that, of course. God, country,
Yeah, so
family.
then
Yeah.
yeah, so then you would consider them nationalists.
A Christian can be a nationalist, but the term Christian nationalist is a nonsense term. It's a paradoxical term. Nationalist refers to ethnicity in terms of it refers to a shared blood history, a shared ethnic history. The root of the word is nadia, meaning of the blood or of the land or of the nation. And
Okay.
so this idea that you're going to have a nation based, a nation of blood based on shared religious doctrine is, to me, a nonsensical term. I don't care. Like, people want to identify that as that, fine. I think it's a stupid term, but I also think civic nationalism is a stupid term. And I think ethno-nationalism is a stupid term. You know, for all the stupid things that Ben Shapiro says, one thing that he did get right was that anything that requires a prefix to be added to the, to it is basically just a dilution of the original form. So I just use nationalism, and I'm referring to obviously blood nationalism or ethno-nationalism when I use it, which is the bastardized version of it. But the reason I bring this up isn't because I want to, get into, whether or not Christian nationalism is a valid thing or not. It's that when I see this problem, I don't look at it as, oh, this is women getting what they deserve, or this is, women's chickens coming home to roost, or now they're going to have to lay in the bed that they've made. I look at it as, these are my people and they're suffering and we have to stop this. And I don't care if, women voted badly in one or two elections, or if they have a habit of being bleeding heart liberals, or even frankly, if the woman in question was somebody who has advocated for refugees. I don't care. It's not right and it needs to stop. And the only people who can stop it are organized men. So instead of bitching about what women have done or haven't done, or what they should or shouldn't do, men could maybe start asserting themselves again and prove that they're actually worthy of being leaders and submitted to, and actually address this very real, very pressing, very current problem, which is women are getting fucking raped and assaulted in the millions in Britain. So I don't care if you think that they're getting what they deserve.
Can I respond now?
Sure.
Can I respond? Okay. So I just have a couple questions for you. Do you believe in the enfranchisement of women?
Like women's suffrage?
Yeah.
Or political rights? No.
Yeah. No. Okay. So then when you ascertain people group, right? So in this case, I understand what you're saying, that a nation is based on the blood of its people, blood and soil, essentially. Something akin to this, right?
Sure.
If you want to have enfranchisement of women, then they're going to take up, I mean, in many cases, they outnumber men, but they take up half the electorate. So how do you propose, when you say that you propose that men organize, you're actually saying that they need to organize and by force take away the enfranchisement of women, right?
Yes.
Okay, well then just to make sure that we're clear, right? If they do disenfranchise women, they take over the electorate. Women can no longer vote, essentially. Um, what's stage two here?
Stage two, as in
Hmm.
we disenfranchise women, and that, that's the end of
Hmm.
it. Like I
Well,
don't,
I'm just
I don't
asking.
follow your
I'm
line of
asking.
thinking.
Do you think that
First,
men then
first of
will
all,
vote to?
I don't
Yeah.
believe
Do
in
you think
voting.
that?
Period.
Yeah, I understand, but right now that is the system. So if you're advocating that
Sure.
we advance on the system, dismantle it, take away the enfranchisement of women, and take away women's suffrage and women's rights, which okay, that's fair enough. I'm just asking, do you think that then after that's done, that men, of course, if they were in a voting system, would likely vote to get rid of the immigrants and would push to get rid of the immigrants?
In Well, no, not currently. They wouldn't. We know that's not true, or at least it's not true in the sense that it's strong enough to have a majority. Maybe
Well,
some
no,
of them are.
if it was only men voting, they would 100% in the United States, Canada, UK,
No,
everywhere they
that's
would basically vote it out.
it's possible, but it depends on what you're when you say the immigrants out, it depends what you mean. So like I can do this for Canada. Obviously, like I'm not sure what the respective numbers would be in each country, but in Canada, yeah, like 70 something percent of people want reduced immigration,
Mhm.
and like 50% favor deportations of some degree or another. But if you mean
Sure.
remove all people who are not of the blood of the nation, that number is going to shrink to something drastically small. So
Yeah, I agree with that too. But they would still do a lot more to be curtailing the immigration problem if it was only men who were enfranchised. Is what I'm after.
I don't know that. I mean, yes, that's probably true to some degree, but for example, in America, don't the majority of white women vote Republican?
Well, they vote where how their husbands vote if they're married.
Okay,
So
well,
that's why. But as the marriage rates decrease, you'll probably start seeing that less and less.
and this is also true in the United. I don't know how familiar you are with the United Kingdom's politics and electoral history, but I mean, since the 1960s, the British people have voted consistently against immigration, and they haven't gotten it from their government. In particular, over the last 15 years or so, all
Yep.
5 elections, that went to the Tories were, very strongly on an anti-immigration, vote, and they kept promising and they kept not getting it. And the only reason now that the Labour is in power in the United Kingdom is because people got so sick of the Tories not following through on immigration that they split the vote between the Tories, Reform, English Democrats, and 100 other right-wing micro parties, and that allowed the Labour to take the majority of the vote and seize power. So, like this perspective that if women didn't vote, it would be over. Maybe it would, but women voting hasn't prevented people. Like it's not like they're not voting against immigration.
They're
Um,
not. They're not by and large. Like even if
Well,
you look at the
maybe
last
they're
vote,
maybe they're
even if
not
you,
by a super majority
yeah,
or by a lot, but
not even usually by a majority.
but
They're
I
not.
just I just gave you an example. In the United States, Republican women are or sorry, white women, the majority of
Mhm.
them vote Republican. So it is a majority.
Well, that's not the majority of women. So
Right, but I
it's
I
like,
don't care. See, this is why I brought up the nationalist perspective, because I don't care what women outside of my own nation want or vote for. I don't like
but
that's I'm not.
but they are in your nation voting
Yes, they
points. So
are.
so
Of course
I
they
guess
are.
my counter he-
But
my
I'm not
counter
going,
here is that
Andrew, I'm not going to
yeah.
blame the vote of minority women in my country who I don't think should even be here to begin with and then, you know, punish the white women who the majority of don't want these people in our country for the actions or for the vote of that minority. Why would I do that?
Even if it was this majority of white women who were crafting said legislation, for instance.
Sorry, say again.
Even if it were those women, that very group of white women who are in the majority who are crafting the various legislation for this.
If you want to talk about individual groups who are responsible for crafting this kind of legislation and lobbying for it, let's get into Jews.
Yeah, there are some Jews who do that. Yeah,
of course, there's a lot of Jews that do that.
Sure,
I know it's
sure. A massive overrepresentation, but this is a red herring again.
So you want to blame women for their involvement in, you know, crafting immigration policy and say they bear the lion's share of the burden for it, and then you want to ignore the people that actually are disproportionately represented and actually are systematically engaging in that kind of policy.
I'm not ignoring it. I just conceded. I literally just conceded the point. What do you mean?
Okay,
what are you talking about? How do I concede the point and then you want to keep arguing the point? I'm just saying that you can't defer away. If the case is that you want a violent overthrow of the government of your nation,
I didn't say violent, right? I've never said violent.
Well, how are they going to take it? How are they going to organize and take it back by force?
Force does not necessarily mean violence. It can mean the threat of violence, but
really, how would it mean it in this context?
In this context, I'll give you an example. Yeah. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So
okay.
A couple weeks ago in Australia, 150 quote unquote Nazis did a march. Now, if you're familiar with this particular organization, they have done marches like this before, and they have repeatedly been subjected to attacks from the state through, you know, the mechanism of law enforcement. Now, this time they were out in numbers that, you know, previously they had never been over 100 when it came to these kind of marches, and now they've reached 150. So now all of a sudden the police wasn't able to do anything about it, and they had to just watch and follow as these men with impunity walk through the streets of downtown Melbourne and, you know, exercise their political rights. That was a demonstration of force without using violence.
So, okay, so your organization for force would be to get men to march through the streets to disenfranchise women?
Well, that's a demonstration of force. If you can mobilize 150 men with impunity and just occupy a space physically, you are demonstrating that you have the force to occupy.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is how is it when you say that men should organize in order to use force to take away the rights of women to vote, right, and things like this? When you say organize them, are you just talking about they're going to go on street marches? Or are you talking about something else?
No, I'm talking about
organizing. And I'm not asking you to Fed post. We're talking in abstracts here. Like abstractly, if this was the case. If this was the case.
I don't have to Fed post at all. This is the bulk of what I do in terms of activism and, you know, political engagement. So I'm a proponent of things called active clubs, which is essentially, you know, men getting together and forming organizations that are going to look out for their collective interests and the interests of their people. Now, my particular organization in Canada has, I'm not going to get into exact numbers, but in the hundreds of members. And the purpose of it is to pool resources, be able to share information, to bolster each other, to improve one another, and get to the point where we can start projecting power into other aspects of society through our collective will. So,
yeah, but how are you going to take the right? We're just always going to kind of come back to the same question, right? How do we get to the point where women become disenfranchised from voting in these mass migration policies? Now, maybe you only care about the interests of white women, right? I understand that, but they're not the only ones who are enfranchised. It's all women are enfranchised, and they don't see everything through the lens of racialism the same way that you do. And so they often collectivize in their votes. They often collectivize in their votes for the purposes of power dynamics. How would you entail that you were going to utilize force, though, to do this? So my counter is, I think that you can't do that. I think you won't be able to. Right, I think that the descriptive, hang on, let me finish the position. I think the descriptive truth is that you're never going to be able to do mass organization, have men march the streets to non-violently, without any force, or at least applied violent force, take away the rights of women. That's not going to happen, at least descriptively. But what can happen is a form of accountability. So women are the easiest, they're the easiest to propagandize. That's why those white women mostly vote with their husbands. They're the easiest to propagandize. And it's not just them, by the way. It's most of these demographics, the woman will vote alongside of her husband. And so because they're the easiest propagandized, that's where I would start with the idea of the removal of suffrage. And part of that's going to be accountability. Marching in the streets isn't going to do that. Go ahead.
All right. So what's your solution? Talk to I want like so we've gone through my solution. I've said what I'm doing in terms of real world organization and trying to get men together and actually be active within their communities to some you know, reasonable kind of political force. What is your solution?
Yeah, but I'm not, well, first of all, I'm not attacking that.
No, I'm genuinely asking you. Okay, you disagree.
I'm talking from the micro to the macro.
You disagree with the validity of my approach. Well, I'd like to hear your approach about how you're going to disenfranchise women.
Yeah, so
by talking to another girl on the whatever podcast.
Yeah, so that accounts for 2% of my content, and I've debated with the best debaters in the entire world. They've gone viral everywhere. You're only familiar with this one space, which is why you're harping on it. That's one style of debates that I do sometimes.
I'm familiar with the Crucible, Andrew. I've watched a few of those debates.
So I would start, so I would just start with this. I would start with the idea of what do we have that's already collectivized that we can mobilize politically? Well, on the right, there's really only one thing, and that's religious institutions. That's the only thing that is actually collectivized. What is not collective, whiteness is not collectivized. Nothing, in fact. The institutional power on the right has been lost in academia. It's been lost in almost every institution except one. And my demonstration and proof of this, we can see what happened when they boycotted like Bud Light, for instance, and things like this. That was, and during COVID, when churches resisted, when most other establishments didn't resist, right? The lockdowns and this and that. That's the only place that I can see that already has ground laid infrastructure, which can be collectivized. And I know this because liberals and progressives have billions of dollars in NGO funding going towards subverting those institutions constantly. So that's where I would start, is there.
So have you done that?
Yeah, of course. That's what do you think the propositions of Christian nationalism are? It's the idea of collectivizing people who share Christian ethics in order to mobilize for political action. That's the point.
Well, I look forward to the great Christian revolution.
Well, I look forward to the great, Million Man March, right? But the thing is like when you're talking about infrastructure.
I don't know how many men you have. I have hundreds.
Well, Christians have, like 60% of the country.
Those aren't yours.
No, there's a shared ethic. There's a shared ethic.
What is there? 1.5 billion Christians and 1 billion denominations.
That's true, but they have a shared ethical foundation, just like Muslims do. So the thing is that's interesting here is like for the collectivization, my demonstration would be things like let's take Roe v. Wade. Christians spearheaded that even from all different denominations because of the shared ethics system. So there is still a glue which is left on the right that is still ripe for collectivization. And that would be the mechanism in which I would use to move after these other higher goals, like the removal of immigration, bypassing universal suffrage and things like this. And by the way, those are actually baked into Christian ethics. The idea in Christian ethics of patriarchy, the idea in Christian ethics of the traditional family, anti-LGBTQ, they're already baked in. So
yeah,
that's where I'd start.
I fundamentally, obviously, have to oppose Christian nationalism because it is in direct conflict with ethno-nationalism for obvious reasons. Yeah, sure.
But there's a shared ethic you can have with them too, that you could compromise on, which would be cultural nationalism.
There is with some, but the problem obviously.
Well, cultural nationalism is the link that you would have between the two. So if the cultural nationalist says, I only want people who share culture, and it just so happens that most of those people who share culture are white, don't you now have a shared interest with them?
Cultural nationalism is, again, that just sounds like civic nationalism, which again is not really much better than Christian. It is no better than Christian nationalism.
Well, it's not like civic nationalism. Civic nationalism is an idea that if you're a citizen of the nation, that there's this like melting pot idea that there's magic dirt. You kiss the magic dirt.
I'm very familiar.
Now you become.
I'm familiar with civic nationalism.
But cultural nationalism is what most people had. The idea was this, that it is true that you need to have, some kind of homogeny going on somewhere, but there also has to be some type of cultural glue that keeps people together. Something, the Norse had the Norse gods, and I would say that culture is downwind of theology, and so the idea
I think culture is downstream of race. I think this is
okay. Well,
when you say so, this is a perfect example. Yeah. Let me go. You've gone for a bit. Let me go.
Ahead.
You just said that culture is downstream of theology. Well, explain to me why there is so much cultural difference between Christians in the Congo and Christians in Scandinavia. If culture is downstream from theology, the Congo, which has been Christian for 100 years, and Scandinavia, which has been Christian for 1,500 years,
Ethiopia is an even better example.
Sure.
So I agree that there's going to be things which are genetically ingrained in people in their environment, which will activate certain behaviors. But that doesn't mean that their culture is still not informed by this other thing. It doesn't mean that they would be exact. An example of this would be this. I mean, do you think that, let's say Romans had at some point adopted all the Norse gods, and abandoned their gods, right? Wouldn't you say that their culture would look super different than it looked when they adopted Christianity? Wouldn't you say that that was the case, even though there's much more of a shared genetic heritage there?
I don't know. This is a really that's a pretty I
mean, it's just obviously yes, right?
No, it's not.
It's obviously the case.
It's not obviously yes, and the reason why is because the pantheon of Norse gods is much more similar to the pantheon of the Roman gods than Christianity. But in the Roman, adaptation of Christianity, they obviously put a lot of the culture of their previous religious religion and theology into those gods, which is why the Roman Catholic Church has patron saints, which are, they're basically demigods. It's a deified version. It made the transition much easier from a pantheon of many gods to, one god. So,
while I would disagree,
I don't know if it would have been vastly different.
Yeah, it's going to look vastly different, because you can see how the culture looks different in Japan when you introduce Christianity versus Buddhism. Like you can see distinctions in culture begin to be emergent. And so even if people had Christianity, but under cultural nationalism didn't share the cultural values, right, then you would reject them. Being Christian wouldn't be enough. There would have to be cultural identity. So it seems like you have a lot in common with people on the cultural nationalist side, whether you think so or not. And the idea here, but the idea here, I don't see how you don't. I don't see how you don't.
I don't care if an Indian comes here and they sound like they're from Alberta and they like watching hockey and they drink maple syrup by the fucking gallon. I don't care if they're culturally similar to me. They're not Canadian. I don't want them here.
Yeah, but if you could pick,
I don't care if they're Christian or they're Hindu.
Yeah, but if you could pick between these two groups, right? And cultural nationalists have the same choice, and they pick the most culturally assimilatable group, and they had to pick between like Denmark and Ethiopia. The cultural nationalists are going to select Denmark, and the ethno-nationalists are going to select Denmark. So it does seem like there's common ground there.
Well, of course there is, but they're going to choose Denmark because of racial reasons, and because you don't want to admit that it's racial, so you're relying on cultural as an fine. Whatever.
I just said the race. There's a racial component to it. I've never denied it. Where are you getting that?
Okay, well then I don't know, why are you
So I don't even
fighting?
know where you're. I don't know where you're
Know
getting
why
at. Well,
you're
I never
fighting.
was fighting you. You were the one with the big criticisms for an out of context tweet when I was explaining that I think that the only way that you could, basically, the idea is accountability for women, and if you and I share the same goal. So for me, I have it even better, or maybe you share this too, that I would prefer disenfranchisement of most people. I don't think most people should be able to vote. But if we're talking about collectivization for power, there's one inroad here I have that you don't, that's collectivized, that we can already see has great political power, which is the church. And so it's like it seems like
That's
your criticism
no,
of me and what I'm saying about women and accountability, I don't even understand it really.
but the issue, Andrew, obviously, for somebody from my perspective, which is a rapidly growing one in the entire, well, Western world, but particularly in the Anglosphere, is that the church, there's not a single, let me put it this way, there is not a single church in this country that would accept me if they knew my political views, and there is not a single church in my country that would not accept any brown foreign invader that showed up on their doorstep tomorrow like they're one of their own. So no, I'm not going to be able to work with some kind of Christian based movement or something that puts that as the most important priority or their guiding principle, because there's not a single institution that actually is amenable to my worldviews when it comes to modern Christianity. The Catholic,
Oh yeah, like
we can go through.
Pastor Anderson's not amendable to your position, really? Like
I'm not
Pastor Anderson
I'm
is
not
not
familiar. Is he
amendable to your
American?
position?
Is he American?
Yeah, Jared Taylor not amendable to your position? Like, come
I
on,
didn't
man.
say that
Yeah,
hang on. I didn't say that there were no Christians. I said that there were no Christian institutions.
and I just gave you an institution, a church,
What is
which
the
would.
a single church that exists in America? I'm Canadian.
Okay, but here's the thing. You say, well, right now, to exercise political power, hundreds of men, right? That single church probably has hundreds and hundreds of men. And it's like so I reject, first of all, that there's not even a church for your political persuasion, whether I agree with your political persuasion or not. But
In
even more important than this, I still don't even understand the criticism. Obviously, women need to be held to account for the things that they vote for and that they institute, right? They have to be held to account for those things. And if we're talking about collectivization to do that, it seems like I have a mechanism for that, and you just objectively don't.
your mechanism is Christianity.
Well, no, my mechanism is not Christianity. What did I
Well,
say
then
my
what is
mechanism was?
it? Like you just said, it was Christianity. What is
It's the
it?
collectivization of the institutional power of churches. It's not just
So,
about Christianity.
so Christianity.
Yeah, but do you understand the political proxy versus the religious
No,
proxy here?
I understand. You're arguing that the church has political power, which I don't disagree
Yes.
with. But
Yes, so if that's the
it's
case, and
how many,
they can
Andrew?
exercise.
How many?
Hang on, almost done, and then I'll let you go, and I won't interrupt you. It's the case that through collectivization of the one institution left on the right, who's in the most agreement with my views, right, which is to hold these people accountable for the things that they're doing. Why wouldn't I make inroads with that? Why would I instead try to reinvent the wheel? How's that not just objectively silly?
Because these institutions are so corrupted that the process of the amount of it's the same as the political institutions in this sense. So you said that the institution of churches is a good vehicle for you to advance your political agenda. Am I putting words in your mouth, or do you agree with that?
I guess you could make that a basic argument, sure.
Okay, so you want to use the vehicle of the institutions of Christianity to advance your political agenda. And the problem with that is that what is the largest Christian institution in the world? It's the Catholic Church. Does the Pope,
That's correct.
does the Pope agree with you that women should be disenfranchised?
Well, the thing is
Does the
like,
Pope agree with you that,
yeah,
that immigrants should be
yeah,
deported? Does the Pope agree with you that, that gays should be what? Does he agree with you on anything?
Here's the thing though, right? Even if the Pope doesn't agree with anything that I say, the Catholic Church is a massive regional power, with very powerful bishops, very powerful priests, very powerful megachurches because they run off of money like everybody else. The Pope himself, as the figurehead, often doesn't even get too involved in localized politics when it comes to these things. He makes some generalized statements and this type of thing. But when it comes to political excess of power, the Catholic Church was definitely on the forefront of getting Roe v. Wade overturned. They were definitely going at it extremely hard and backed that up. The Pope himself, though, didn't hear much from him on that. So you're talking about, the thing is just pointing at the head of the Catholic Church saying he doesn't agree with anything. We're talking about a massive regional political organization. Seems to me like it's kind of a straw man. A bit.
It's not, though, because you've given me one example of where Catholics, despite the Pope's involvement, or by the way, the Pope is against abortion, so I don't even know why this is like a controversial statement.
Well, the thing is,
like that's not a win for you in this. Yeah. He wasn't vocal, but the Pope is obviously anti-abortion. So, like, why do you think that?
Well, because I'm not sure that all popes are anti-abortion, even if they're silent about it.
Let's use a different example. There are many religious organizations in the United States, in particular, that are facilitating the invasion through your southern border. Now, many of them are.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And the chief amongst them is obviously the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. And then the next biggest organizations facilitating it are what? They're Christian. They're Catholic. They're Christian. They're Lutheran. They're Protestant. There's tons of them. Who is sending our people?
But hang on. The problem:
to build schools and facilitate migration and to do all. They're Christian. So.
Yeah, the problem with this is that
your vehicle is already
in the
civil war. You are in a civil war.
So is yours. Yeah, yes, so is yours.
Agree. So why do you think that your vehicle?
But mine has because mine has actual political clout, moxie, and infrastructure, along with billions of donors.
What to serve?
At least hundreds of millions of donors. No, they don't serve Israel. The Catholic Church
doesn't serve Israel.
Do you know what the Catholic Church dogma is about Israel? And when you're talking about John Hagee and you're talking about dispensationalists, that's being fought against. That's the civil war you want to happen. That's the one that you're wanting to happen. And that's what's happening. The anti-Zionists from the traditional church branch are saying, no, that's not what Israel means. It's not what Zionism means. So that's what you want. That's the civil war portion you would want.
There's 100 million evangelicals in the United States, and 90+% of them are Zionists.
No, they don't. No.
Yes,
that's categorically false. Dispensationalism is followed, I think, by about 20 to 30%. So, and those are under the megala pastors, but most of them actually don't have that theology. They don't. Either they have replacement theology or other theologies. So that's just wildly inaccurate. But even if I were to grant it, that would still be the civil war you wanted, and that would, at least within the church, and also it would still grant the vehicle for political change. You giving the criticism that this organization is so big that it's actually at war with itself over the theology, right? Actually is saying that it's in a position to even do that. You're in the same type of kind of civil conflict within a secular ethic, but you have no vehicle from which to launch it. So I don't know what this criticism is, man, but it falls flat on its face. You're in this. We're building our own. I understand that. Yeah, I understand you're trying to build your own vehicle, but it seems way more logical to me to advance the vehicle that's already entrenched. So.
Fine. Fair enough. To draw it back to the original point of this discussion, though, which is, should women be forced to bear the brunt of the decisions by some of them? I don't know where we land on this, but to me, the answer is obviously not. And you don't even disagree with that. You've already said that obviously this girl shouldn't be subjected to this, and who should defend her other than men?
Yeah. So wait a second. But that's not what the post was about. The post wasn't about hang on. My post response had nothing to do with whether or not some fucking crazy lunatic was attacking a girl and men should step in and take care of that problem. Of course they should. That's ridiculous. The post was saying you can't put this at the feet of men. You voted for it, and this is what you have to suffer under. If you're going to use women as a collective, this is what happens. And it is.
Sorry, I had a call.
Okay. Did you hear the last part of what I said?
No, I didn't. My phone cut out.
Well, I'll just finish out with this, and then I'll let you go about your day because I got to get to a show, and I promised you it'd only be a half hour. So, what I said was this: I said my tweet had nothing to do with that. Had nothing to do with whether or not men should step in if a 13-year-old girl's about to get raped. Of course they should, and so should women. So should everybody, right? So should other kids if they can. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the idea that if you're going to collectivize the power of women, then they're going to have to be held to account for their votes. They're going to have to be held to account, and that's going to be a consequence that they're going to have to face, and they have to face it. And whether you like that or not, it's true. And if you want to have accountability for it, the only thing that I can point to is the one patriarchal structure, which can actually give that accountability, which is actually moving towards this idea of the removal of universal suffrage, and is actually an entrenched political vehicle. So I'll just end it with that.
Fine. Now let's get on to when are we going to have a physical contest?
Okay. About what? What's the physical contest supposed to be? Well, why is this relevant? How old are you? Well, let's start with that. How old are you?
I am 36.
Okay, you're 36 years old. So is it even to be taking on a man in his 40s at 36?
I don't know. Are you a man who takes care of himself and you're in shape and you're fit?
I'm getting in shape, but no, I'm not in shape yet.
Yeah.
No.
Obviously,
but so what? What is that like? What does that have to do? Why is it that you want to physically fight with me for some reason?
No,
Why?
it doesn't have to be that. I didn't say that it had to be a fight. No. So the reason I do this is because I don't think you're a man of action. I think you're a windbag. I think that you're all talk and you're going to sit there and you loved it. You're very good. You're a very good Grima Wormtongue. You sit there and you debate. You sound smart. You've got your arguments nailed down. You're really good at making, in particular, OnlyFans girls and feminists look dumb, and you get lots of claps, and it looks great. At the end of the day, you aren't going to do shit personally. You're going to talk more.
Neither are you. You march to the street with your little. Then do it. Prove it. Prove it. Go down the street. Go down the street with your gun. Go down the street with your gun and do something. Stop bullshitting me. All you do the same thing I do. You have discourse with people and you try to change their minds, and you try to bring attention to your movement by marching, just like I bring attention to the views that I have by doing similar types of things. I don't march specifically, but we're doing the exact same thing in different ways. And the thing that's crazy here is what are you going to do about it? You're not going to do anything about it. You're going to march around in khakis, bro. What are you doing?
I don't know. I'm the vice president of an organization, as I said, that has hundreds of members. I have men that actually follow me and believe in what we're doing. Do you have? If you have called,
Okay, first
you have millions of followers. How many men? That would come meet you and march through the street with you.
Well, the last time I did an IRL event, there was like 600 people who showed up to meet me.
Okay, so yeah.
How about you?
Well, I actually have a photo similar. The last time that we did a large public event, we had about 600 people there, 500 people there.
Yeah, but I'm just one guy. And the thing is you saying that you can't use discourse, which is the primary way in which you can make motivation through influence.
Organizing,
yes, it is.
Organizing the physical space is how you ultimately advance your point. You say this.
So show me in the last 20 years where you have advanced a single political agenda with force.
Well, I could point to one 3 years ago. I was named a key convoy organizer during the 2022 trucker convoy in Ottawa, and that was absolutely a demonstration of physical force, as in we occupied the capital of a nation for 3 weeks until they had to call every single member of the police that they could to crack down on it. It took them.
That was not your organization.
No, I just
That was
said, I
not
didn't
you.
say,
And
I
I
didn't
know,
say,
and I know, I
Andrew,
know
I didn't
Jeremy
say
it was
it was
another one.
mine. I said
Yeah.
I was named a key convoy
Well,
organizer
that's great that
by
you
the
were named
government.
that, but that was not your organization, and that was not a movement which was directly in line with what it is that you're advocating right now. Like I know
Exactly,
Jeremy
which is,
pretty well. I know Jeremy pretty well, and he was also named as a
yeah,
big,
and
you know,
and you know that
him and Diagolon and all of that.
Jeremy is the president of the organization that I'm the vice president of.
Yeah, but do you understand my point here? My point with Diagolon and all of that, the point with the truckers. What I'm telling you is like I could make the same claim then with J6. I can make the same claim when it was the case that
Were you
Christians were
there?
occupying the Capitol building in Michigan.
Were you
I was in
there?
Michigan, yeah. I was at the Capitol building in Michigan, yeah. So was
No,
my
you
wife.
just said January 6th. Were you there?
I didn't say that I was at January 6th.
No,
I
but you
gave you another
mentioned it and you
example.
said that you could take responsibility for it.
No, I didn't say I could take response. I'm just saying that by your logic, if there's another organization that you support, whether you're there or not, are you
No,
saying that the
no.
supporters of the
The central
convoy,
point.
what?
You said that I have never
Uh-huh.
organized anything that resulted in any kind of physical force that resulted in some kind of change being made to the political
No,
environment. And that's
you jumped on a movement. That's different. That's one.
no.
And two, most of that was to spur political discourse.
I
Most
brought
of that was to
hundreds
spur
of
political discourse.
I brought hundreds of people to that mass movement because I
So what?
organized in the physical space. I made my following. I got my name by traveling this country, meeting
Uh-huh.
with people in real life and building
Yeah.
connections with
So
people in the real
same
world.
thing, exact same thing. Doing the exact same thing. And not only that, let me just point this out, and this is super important, okay? That entire movement was heralded to be nonviolent for the purpose of advancing political discourse, which is exactly what influencers did, including Jeremy. So it's like I still don't know what you're even fighting with me about. If you say that influence and influencers and dialogue is not the primary mover, and especially meme culture, things like this of political discourse, then I'm just going to say you're objectively wrong. And I have 50 years of history to back me up on this.
Fine.
All right. Well, I appreciate the talk, but maybe I was wrong in one sense. I did think that I would at least get some agreement with my position from you, but maybe not. Maybe not.
I don't know what there is to agree with.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a more tenable position than yours.
Thanks for watching. There is hope in Jesus Christ. He will never leave you or forsake you. Like and subscribe and join our Discord for friends and more.